Well, it's China versus the United States in the battle for AI dominance, and China is closing the gap. In fact, when it comes to usage and cost, China is now in the lead.
Of course, this is causing concern in Washington, Wall Street, and in Silicon Valley, where U.S. companies are, including Anthropic and OpenAI, are chasing trillion-dollar valuations. Luz Ding is on a team of Bloomberg reporters who have done a deep dive into this fierce competition between the U.S. and China on AI. Luz joins us now. I want to do justice to all the data-driven research you guys did. It's really, really
Beautifully
cool.
Presented as well.
But first, I want to start with this chart, which basically shows how close these two countries are in equivalencies with these AI models. I know you broke it down into different sectors and different types and which country is better at, but can you just give us the top lines, what you found when you dug into capacity and usage of these models? And cost. I know cost is a really big issue.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me. So yeah, as we can see from the graph that you just showed before, that the gap between the U.S. and Chinese top models have been narrowing. It was narrowed from over a year to now just a few months, especially after the recent breakthrough from China's moonshot's Kimi K3 model release in July. We are also seeing the usage of Chinese models around the world increasing. One of the data points that we used was from OpenRouter, one of the major AI access platforms. We're seeing the use of Chinese models reached over 60% in July, and in the month before, the use of Chinese models surpassed the U.S. models for the first time on the platform. And then it's worth noting that the users they don't have to send data to China or Chinese models to use these Chinese companies to use Chinese models, because most of the Chinese top models are open weight, meaning that these models can be downloaded, modified, and deployed anywhere needed. So a lot of the use that we're talking about, especially the use of the models in the US, we're talking about Chinese models deployed in data centers in the US or Canada and run by US companies.
You're putting all of these models through their paces, and my favorite test you did was asking them to create a fictional e-commerce site called Brewberg, a coffee site, fake e-commerce company. Just sort of explain the difference between how each of these models approach that, maybe in terms of what they were able to create and also the costs associated with that when you compare kind of the US models to the Chinese models.
Yeah, so yeah, we see a lot of benchmarks and rankings and scores, but it's difficult to see like how actually they perform. So we gave this one prompt, as you said, to build a coffee shop website to some of the leading models. And then what we find, first of all, building a e-commerce website seems not to be a difficult task for most of the models available right now. It's not challenging for the top ones, but it's also not challenging for the lower tier ones. Most of them we have found are able to build functional websites that we need. But then now we're also seeing, for example, the prices are quite different. For example, for Anthropic's model Fable 5, when we asked it to build a website, it was able to deliver a very sophisticated website within an hour, and the bill was about $50. That's already pretty good for a website, but then if you use China's Kimi K3 model, then you can build a similar website for just a quarter of the price. And then if you want to sacrifice a little bit of the graphic design, and then you want to wait for longer hours, you can go even below $5 for their website, and they can still work. Yeah,
so you're gonna have like
the Sheen version of the website, but it sounds like the Sheen version is like pretty okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the end, it really up to like how fast you want the results in the first take, and how good you want it to be, and how much you want to pay for that perfection and speed.
There are also places that it seems like the Chinese models are actually outdoing the US models. Can you walk us through the different categories? You looked at coding, you looked at finance, you looked at banking support. Where are the Chinese models really excelling?
Yeah, so it depends on how you use it and which industry that are more adapted to the models. I don't think from the graphics that you saw in our story, there are rankings of different ways, and then if I could remember it correctly, on the finance service side, there are more Chinese models leading in the top 3, whereas in some other categories, there are only 1 Chinese models in the top 10. But then Chinese models, its real advantage is in the price, because it can be capable enough to address a lot of the questions and tasks that we encounter in real life and also in working places. So with the capable enough capability and then also the very low price, it's become very irresistible for a lot of companies to adopt. Including some of the top US tech companies like Airbnb, DoorDash, and Coinbase.
Luz, I want to go back to something that Christina mentioned at the top, that this is kind of in the crucible of a couple of these AI companies poised to go public, so Anthropic and OpenAI. And it makes me wonder just sort of how important this metric of being the best is. That if you look at these side by side, they're both quite good, the Chinese models and the US models. How important is it from a business perspective, a financial perspective, that Anthropic and OpenAI maintain this kind of vanguard position here as they go into their IPOs?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, OpenAI and Anthropic are still the best, building the best models, the most capable models, and there's still a lot of money being made by them in the current market. And then also the data that we saw, they're not a full capture of all of the global AI use, because OpenRouter is just one platform. There are a lot of other platforms that offer these services, and the use of Anthropic and OpenAI's API, and the use of Anthropic and OpenAI's service is not trackable because it's with their company. And then I would say that it's hard to say like how, for example, of course, if you were the best in the category, you are always you're attracting more investors. But at the same time, there are also another market that's to be tapped, is that those companies in smaller companies or companies in developing countries, they may not be able to pay that high price that Anthropic and OpenAI are charging. And then now they look at, and then they can choose Chinese models, which are like increasingly capable, and then they offer much lower price, and they are open weight, so you can deploy it locally. So that's a market that Chinese models are trying to conquer, and they're already succeeding in a lot of places.